What is up, guys? It is Stu, and it is another episode of the What the Fuck Gym Talk podcast. We're talking to Gym Real Estate Company today. I'm going to show you, we'll conceal all the identity and the sensitive information, but I'm going to show you an email from a consulting client. This is someone who did not come to us to help them find a building or a property or a piece of land to lease or buy. They actually already have the parcel ready to go. They now have investors, members within their gym, like most gym owners have. It's one of the beautiful things of owning a gym is this incredible Rolodex of clients you have that do incredible things, are that top 1%, and they see a great opportunity to be altruistic and help you as an entrepreneur, someone they care about, someone whose business probably had a lot of impact on them, but they also see a good business opportunity, especially when it comes to commercial real estate. And we do a lot of these where we are going to be advising a client in more of a consulting fashion as to how to structure a deal when you have a cash investor come in wanting to help you either build a property, buy an existing site, and then you renovate it and do construction on it, whatever it may be, or maybe buy your current one and they want to be involved in commercial real estate. It's a great, obviously, wealth strategy that very, very few people in the world ever get a chance to participate in. And they see an opportunity with you, and you as the gym owner also love that idea because you're no longer leasing, but you're trying to figure out how in the world do I become a part of this whole thing. And so one of the things we'll do is we'll help put together the structures or the partnership agreements between the investors and the gym owner client. Because a lot of gym owners I don't know how this is going to work if I don't have a ton of money to put into this and they're bringing it in. How do I get any ownership in the building? Is it going to be just like I was renting previously? How do I generate ownership? So that's ultimately what we're going to be working on with this consulting client. And in a later episode, I'll walk through some of the options I presented to them and what we ended up doing on this, because I have this call with this person this week. But here's what I wanted to share with you. This is the email that I am sending. So I've got this, Sally, my VA, my admin, sent over a notification. Hey, we've got this appointment. I've already spoken with this individual on the phone briefly. And now I'm sending her a bunch of additional questions that I'd like for her to bring or send to me prior to our call. So over the course of the 60 minutes that I'm framing this whole thing up and engineering what I believe would be the best opportunity for her and her investors to partner on, I have all the information needed at my disposal because there's a lot of moving pieces. And I want to just hit you guys with the questions I'm sending over to her because there are several of you that are maybe at some stage, early stage in talking with an investor. It could be the bank, it could be a bank and private equity, meaning a cash investor, family member, a current existing client, someone whatever it may be. And these are things you want to be thinking of. All right, so I'm just going to really go through these questions with you. So first thing here I had in here is, okay, do we have an existing accurate cost estimate of this commercial real estate project? I see that the agreed upon sales price is $850,000, but what are the all-in construction costs for the delivered product? That's the thing. So she's looking to build a structure. Her and the investors have gotten a quote from the GC, which I haven't seen yet, but the agreed upon sales price between her and the investors, and I believe also the bank, she's going to be doing an SBA loan on this as well, is $850,000 for the structure of this thing. Okay, so this build, I believe it's an industrial space is what they're building essentially. Maybe just like a warehouse type structure. Tin siding. Metal fab warehouse tin building essentially is my guess is what it is. Now the agreed upon sales price is $850, but what are the all-in construction costs for the delivered product? Because here's the thing: is with these projects, the end construction project cost is far more than the building itself. In fact, building a warehouse, even like a good size one, like a 10,000 square foot warehouse, is incredibly inexpensive in comparison to the end total construction cost, because there is land that has to be purchased, which I believe they already own. It has to be graded. It has to be, you have to have utilities brought out to it if there is not existing electricity, existing water, phone lines, all that stuff. There might need to be some additional requirements from the county or township or city as to where waste is going if there's not an existing solution for that. So there are a ton of things that are going to come in here. Also, this is a building on a raw piece of land. There is no road or entrance from the main street, right? There's no little driveway. There's no parking lot. There's no structure there whatsoever. So what I'm trying to get to is I see this sales price is $850, and I just want to make sure that we're not talking about the building in and of itself, but that we're also looking at the total construction cost for everything all in. And that could be the number. It could be $850 for everything, and then once I get to see that construction quote and see every item that I know to look for on that, I can feel confident, okay, we have an all-in number. There's not gonna be any surprise like, oh, that quote didn't include this. It didn't include, the extra $25,000 to get the electrical company to come out and actually create you a terminal out there, or like an electrical terminal out there you'll see outside of buildings, generally in those green, ugly looking, structures, they kind of conceal them, a generator or whatever, to connect to this. Right, to go put up, maybe some poles, some electrical, electricity poles, street poles, or adding entrenching and plumbing to connect you from your site that you're building out to the nearest sewage way. So all that kind of shit needs to be taken into consideration. So that was my first question that we will get to the bottom of. My next question was this. What are the existing financials of the business? Can you provide me an average monthly revenue, expense, and profit for 2024? So on the intake form, we had in there that, they're doing generally around $28,000 a month in revenue, then about $20,000 a month in expenses. So ballpark around $8,000 gross in profit. I want to make sure that's still the case, because one of the things I need to advise on is as she's structuring loans, right? What we call debt service. As she's getting a loan with the SBA, that's loan number one. Then she'll have a loan for the down payment from the investors. That's loan number two. And I don't know, is she have to buy new equipment? Likely. I mean, probably she'll be able to bring most of it over from the other gym, but there might have to be new equipment. Even if there's not new equipment, we need to factor in things like lights and fans and additional flooring, which can be, it's so expensive when you're building out a gym. All these little things. So need to have an idea where the business sits at, and I generally will get a P&L, and I probably will at a later date, but for right now I just want to make sure that at least for this calendar year 2024, we're 2 quarters in just about, that I at least have some very accurate financials so that I can make sure that my client is not going to get themselves into a financial predicament down the road with the accumulated debt service. The next question, if you go with a loan agreement with investors, and just for caveat on that, currently what's on the table is the investors are open to being either looking at this as we're going to invest in a real estate holdings company with you, where we have a significant amount of ownership, you'll have some, and we together own the real estate holdings company that will own the building that your gym then leases from. Okay, similar to the structure I created for myself back in 2016. For those of you who don't know, gym owner, bought the building, blah, blah, blah. I always just assume everyone's been watching me since 2017 when that's not the fucking case. I apologize. So we got to find out whether they want this as a loan. So we're just going to treat them like a second bank. So she has a first loan from the bank and the SBA, then a second loan from this private bank, the bank of her members who are acting as the cash investor. So my suggestion in these scenarios, always treat it as a loan. Don't go into ownership agreements if you can avoid them. It is better, cleaner, and way simpler to just have payback terms. Because once you get into the investor, now you have payback plus equity. And then you got to get into things like preferred returns and, opportunity cost and all this other stuff that gets into how much equity does each party have. And then, where we really shine and come in here is in those more complicated terms where the investors want to have ownership in the real estate itself. They don't want this just be a simple loan. And now we have to find a way for my client who's coming into the scenario with very little cash in comparison to the investors, how they are going to climb up the equity scale and create equity for themselves in this property. So that's the first thing is, I need to have a good idea as to what the investors actually want. Because I can't sell something to somebody if they don't want it. If they're like, well, no, we're good with putting in our money, but we're going to own X percent of this building. That's how we've always envisioned it. That's why it's important for us to talk about this. So I can know ahead of time whether that's the angle we need to take or whether we just got to come up with deal terms, payback terms, which is far more simple. Next, do you have a term sheet or commitment letter from the bank and the SBA yet? So a lot of times I'll get a client on and they will look at me dead in the eyes and tell me straight to my face, dude, we're good to go. I talked to the bank. They're going to fund us, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. Like, can you send over the term sheet or a commitment letter? I just got some emails from the banker where he says what they can do. I'm like, cool. So go back to him and ask him for a more formal term sheet or commitment letter. And what happens 99% of the time? The banker comes back and goes, well, I can't prepare that for you yet. I'm still waiting from this or this. Maybe it's some, additional information from my client, or they're waiting for more information from the underwriters, or whatever it may be. There's a piece there. But what they don't realize is that in these informal communications, and emails back and forth and phone calls and in-person meetings are informal when it comes to a bank loan. Because you'll have a loan officer who, again, makes his money off this, is gonna be like, yeah, we got this deal, it's be fine, I'm not gonna have any problem with the underwriters, they're always gonna show the glass is half full. I am not a pessimist. I'm actually probably my biggest weaknesses is I'm ignorantly optimistic. But that's when I'm doing my own shit, and it's got me in a lot of trouble. When I'm dealing with other people's money in my client situations, I am always 100%, I hope for the best, but I plan as if the worst is going to happen. And it keeps everybody safe. And if I'm wrong and the worst doesn't happen, my clients have excess cash lying around, or at least they had extra layers of protection to, that they now can alleviate or get rid of. But it's better than being in the other side of that. I wouldn't have a job if I did that, to my clients. So I'm gonna make sure that they have a very firm term sheet or commitment letter from the bank so that we truly understand the numbers. The worst thing is for a client to progress forward without this, and then something changes. Well, listen, I know 7 months ago when we started this conversation, I said your terms would be this, but since then our bank has done X amount of loans with built industrial, meaning we built it from the ground up, and we're kind of at our threshold for what we're comfortable with of having in that portfolio. We don't want a ton of built from the ground up new industrial. We're actually focusing more on retail or this or that or office maybe. So we're still gonna do the deal, but it's at a higher risk to us now, so your points went up by 1.5, and it can fuck the entire thing. So that's why I'm gonna be asking for this. Next. You mentioned a 10 to 15% buffer for construction overruns. In a previous correspondence with me, my client says, hey, listen, we got about 10 to 15% available for overruns. Now, I'm asking questions based here. I ask, what has the construction company informed you of regarding overruns? How much are they responsible for? And also, God, I love fucking Grammarly and all these things that make me look like I actually know how to spell like an educated human being. Otherwise, my emails are just a fucking dumpster fire. All right, we got the punctuation there. Good now. Okay, so what has the construction company informed you regarding overruns? What I mean by that is, what is the process? When you go to work with a construction company commercially, you should be able to sit down with your the GC or the project manager, and they explain to you the budget. And questions you want to ask involve this. Number one, this is the current quote you're giving me. What is the contingency, or what is your buffer for an overrun? Because there's no commercial construction budget that hits the budget on the head. And I'll be honest, I've rarely, sometimes, barely, seen them come in under budget. They're normally, 99% of the time, always over budget and over timeline. Now, what you're gonna wanna ask them is, what is the plan if you tell me this is gonna cost $700,000 to do, and it goes to $750,000. Who covers that extra 50? Well, there is a process where it depends on what caused it. Now, if there were what we call change orders in the industry, a change order is simply you as you're the customer, right? You hire them, you change the plans halfway through. Right? Like maybe the architect came to you and said, hey, listen, we actually can't do it like this. So here's your options, A, B, or C. And you're like, fuck, okay, I'll take B. Well, then you take B, option B, which is a new option. You and your architect go to the GC and they're like, well, dude, that's cool, but you got to fill out a change order because we're going to have to order twice as much material, and we're going to have to do this differently and that differently, and that's going to increase your price by $50,000. In that case, you, the customer, you are going to be the one responsible for that money. Now, let's say they come to you and you have not made one change whatsoever. They're like, hey, listen, so, we told you that the cost of the plumbing was gonna cost this. However, prices of materials and labor have gone up. It's actually gonna cost this. That's an overrun that the construction company should have to eat. And typically a construction company builds out their budget big enough to where they can stomach and they can afford those type of common overruns. Overrun meaning went larger than what the budget originally permitted or originally stated. So it's a very important conversation to have with your GC. The next question I asked was, how much are they responsible for versus you? Again, if there's an overrun, how much, and what is the order of operations for change orders? Meaning if they make a change, hey, our plumbing subcontractors just quit on us. We have to go hire new ones, and the new ones use copper instead of this, which costs more. We have to do a change order to the plan, which is going to increase your cost. They should have to bring that to you, and you guys agree upon what that does to the cost. You agree upon who covers that overrun, and you both sign off on it. That is how this should be done. So if you're working on a project like this, you should walk in these conversations with the GC with those expectations. Now, one of my last questions here was, what is their current average overrun on a project like this? Every GC has the numbers of what they quoted their client and what the end number was. And what you would want to ask is on this specific, so for my client here, it'd be building an industrial structure from the ground up, grading the land, all that. What do you typically see as the overrun? And if they say, well, on average, we're seeing generally a 21% overrun. Now, again, that's something where you got to have a discussion, who's responsible for it. But if it's going to potentially be my client, then her 10 to 15% additional buffer is not good enough. I'm going to strongly advise that she shows up with more. 30% is the generic number I throw out when I don't know your situation intimately. So I'll generally give advice on this podcast or other way, or when I talk to people at conferences, 30% have available in additional cash for the construction. And for a lot of people, like, I can't afford it, then I would say you need to have a better economical design plan and reduce costs so you can afford that 30%. Because I have on only one occasion, and it's still, I'll get sad. I'm not gonna cry, but I'm gonna get fucking sad just talking about it. There's an individual that I've worked with that I adore dearly, great human being, like as a good human, got himself into a scenario with his business where he could not afford the construction overruns and the delays and the fuckery that was happening, and it put him out of business. He is now working for a very large fitness company as a trainer, as a head trainer. He's managerial. But he got fucked because he was undercapitalized. And when these things happen, it bled him dry. He had to shut down his business, and he probably is, I don't know for a fact, but I bet you there might be even some lawsuits where that landlord has a space that's half constructed, and then he had to tap out because he ran out of money because he could not cover the construction overruns. And the landlord was not going to assist either. So it's a horrible scenario to be in. It upsets me to the umpth degree. Don't find yourself there, please. All right. And then I asked, is there anything outside of the actual physical building structure included within the construction quote? Stuff like flooring, lights, bathroom fixtures, anything business specific, what we'd call trade fixtures, things you're gonna fasten to the ground as a tenant, right? Because she's gonna be a tenant in her own building, okay? So that's gonna be the rig or any equipment that gets bolted and Tapcon to the wall or the ground, whatever that is. HVAC and fans, signage, parking lot construction, landscaping. What all is going into this? And this goes more into that construction budget. So I've got lots of questions around the construction budget, because that 850 sales number tells me that the cost of the construction is less than that. And I'm very skeptical over the type of building that I think they're building for that little money. So I am a little skeptical of it, but once I see the construction budget, it might set aside some fears or it might fucking create some new ones. I don't know. Will there be any period in which the business has to make loan payments to the bank, the investors, and pay rent at the existing location at the same time? So they have an existing location. And my concern is that the timeline of their lease ending and the timeline of construction don't go hand in hand, as they rarely ever do. So again, I'm probably going to create some financial projections that look to how would we handle that if you were having to pay bank notes and investor notes and lease payment at the other spot all at the same time. Do we have the liquidity to do so? The last thing I asked here, or second last thing, was what is the payment schedule for the SBA loan and proposed schedule for the investor's loan payback? So again, I don't know if my guess is the investors and my client here have not talked too intimately on loan payback terms. But If they have any kind of idea, I'll work with that. Otherwise, I'll create a structure that works best for all the parties. But I also just want to know with the bank, what kind of terms are we looking for? The nice thing with the SBA, they're pretty standard loan terms, like as far as length of loan, and I know all the ins and outs of the 504 and the 7A, so I love when clients are using an SBA product, but always like to ask that question. And then finally I asked, do you have an addendum added to your lease that states the landlord will allow you to go month to month in the event that your building is not ready by the end of her current or her upcoming lease extension? So she has a lease extension coming up on October 1st of 2024. It will extend her till September 31st, 2025. What if the building's not ready by then? What if construction got, delayed? Or what if it is ready earlier? So I want to see what the actual addendum, which would be addendum is like an addition to your lease. You'd see it at the back of a lease, or you have lease amendments. Amendments are changes to the existing language. Addendum is an added language. It would be kind of either one, whichever one that her lawyer advised on, whichever lawyer she's got drawing these papers up. And again, another thing that we do, we have a great law team with Matt Becker and gym lawyers that we use. We also have people in other states that if we think we need someone state specific for whatever reason. But again, it's just, building out a team to help these clients is it's what I do. So I'm going to strongly advise that we have something in paper, inked and noted from the existing landlord. Because I've had clients where landlords be like, oh yeah, no worries. We'll just go month to month if your construction runs over. Don't worry about it. And as soon as your construction's done, you're good. Just give me like a 30-day notice. Until a year later, something else happens to that landlord, or they get a sales offer, or something else, or another tenant is itching. I had a scenario where the client and the landlord had a handshake agreement that they could stay in the building until the construction was done, until a big fat commercial, like we're talking a credit-worthy tenant, so like a big company that everyone would recognize, came to him and said, hey, we would like to lease out your spot on an 18-year term. We need 2 years to do the construction and do all this to it, but we would like to have an 18-year lease, blah, blah, blah. And that landlord was like, that's my retirement right there. The amount that this company was willing to pay was significantly more than my client. So what do you think happened there? Well, now the client has got the pressure from the landlord, like, dude, you got to get out sooner because these guys are going to make me an offer of a lifetime, but they have to get started by this certain date. And because my client did not have an agreement, I was not working with them at the time that they did this with the landlord. I came in after the fact, and the landlord, at this point already had a conversation, so he would not sign something, and it caused an issue. We got it worked out, but it was a big issue. It was like a good solid, like, I'd say 90 to 120 days stressor for my client and myself, right? It was very unknown as to whether he was going to be gymless or buildingless for a significant period of time. So just these are some questions. I don't know. I bring you guys behind the scenes. This is literally the email I'm going to send back. I just like for you guys to see what it is I do here on the gym real estate side when working with clients. And I thought maybe it'd be interesting for any of you guys who are in a similar project to start thinking of these kind of questions yourself. So if I could ever be of assistance to you or help you with anything commercial real estate related with the Gym Real Estate Company or anything business consulting related through WWF Gym Talk, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, shoot me a DM, whatever it is. And until I see you in the next podcast, have a great fucking day.